Young woman claims. I speak 10 languages. Judge laughed until revealing a surprising truth. Maya stepped into the cramped courtroom, the faint scent of dust hanging in the air, her heart racing with uncertainty. This was more than a battle for a building. It was a fight for a legacy. Her late grandfather's language school, once vibrant with laughter and learning, was now at the mercy of those who didn't understand its true value. She felt small, dwarfed by the towering wood-paneled walls, and by the skeptical judge seated before her. 10 languages, you say? He scoffed, the mocking smirk etched into his face. The murmurs of the audience echoed like distant thunder, punctuating her vulnerability. Here she was, a 23-year-old with dreams that exceeded her meager bank account, crushed beneath the weight of disbelief. As she stood there, Maya's mind spiraled through memories: the quiet evenings spent learning phrases in different tongues, the long hours balancing part-time jobs, and the nights volunteering at the community center. Each language became a thread woven into her identity, not just a skill to brag about. With each taunt, Maya felt her resolve harden even as doubts crept in. Was she really enough to fight this fight? Could a young woman with no substantial backing stand before the court and claim her grandfather's legacy? She recalled the burdens her family had faced, the days her mother wept over unpaid bills, the late-night conversations that whispered of desperation. Her grandfather, always the pillar of hope, had shown the community that language transcended barriers. Now, thrust into a world that demanded proof of her dreams, she felt the anguish clawing at her insides. The fear of inadequacy surged. Deep within, she feared being dismissed as just another ambitious girl lost in her fantasies. Before she could spiral further, a voice broke through the haze of anxiety. How can you prove these lofty claims? The judge leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Her breath hitched in her chest. This was the moment, the crossroads of her past struggles and the uncertain future of her community's cultural heart. Did she confess her doubts or forge ahead through the skepticism? Maya clenched her fists, a mix of defiance and desperation coursing through her veins. She could either succumb to their ridicule or fight for every child who would someday sit in those classrooms, learning that they could be more than the sum of their struggles. Just as she decided to speak, the gravity of what she was challenging slammed into her. The very essence of who she was and what her family had built now stood before her. That legacy shimmered like a lighthouse, illuminating the way forward, yet it flickered in the winds of judgment. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The audience shifted, a palpable tension settling in. With every ounce of belief she could muster, Maya stepped forward. Her voice, though quavering, climbed with passion. This was not just a declaration. It was a promise to honor her grandfather's spirit and the hope he instilled in her community. Would her words be enough? Could they grasp the complex tapestry she was prepared to weave from her experiences? As she opened her mouth to share not just her capabilities, but her truth, the impact of language on identity, on building bridges, an electric silence surrounded her. Every soul in that courtroom was hanging on her every word, while the judge's brows knitted tighter, intrigued now by the young woman who dared to dream against his endless cynicism. The weight of their scrutiny pressed upon her like a vice as she braced for the biggest challenge, yet sharing a story that could shift everything. Would her reality pierce through the armor of age and authority? The air buzzed with unanswered questions, and all she could do was take a deep breath and let her heart speak. Maya inhaled deeply, channeling the storms of her emotions into clarity. Your Honor, she began, her voice steadying, these 10 languages represent more than fluency. They are pathways to understanding cultures, histories, and dreams. Each one has shaped who I am and who I aspire to be. The judge eyed her with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. In that moment, she understood. She was not merely sharing her accomplishments. She was inviting them all to reconsider what it meant to connect in a world rife with division. Her heart raced as she continued, driven by memories of her grandfather's proud smile. I remember the first time I helped a newcomer feel welcome, bridging a gap with a simple hello in their language. It transformed confusion into connection. This isn't simply about a school. It's about nurturing a community, one phrase at a time. As she spoke, a flicker of recognition ignited in the judge's eyes. The audience seemed to lean in, their faces reflecting varying degrees of interest and doubt. Maya craved acceptance, but what she desperately needed was to claim her narrative. She wasn't looking for their approval. She was paving her way forward, armed with the weight of her family's legacy. She recalled the countless hours spent tutoring children, their eyes lighting up as they grasped new concepts. This wasn't just her grandfather's dream, it was her own. The years of work, the sacrifices her family made, and the dedication she poured into each session surged forward, fueling her determination. Doubt clawed at the edges of her confidence. Yet in the midst of those rising insecurities, she recognized a latent power within an understanding that her journey had equipped her with valuable insights beyond the languages themselves. Every word I've learned has taught me empathy, she pressed on, feeling the impact of her mission in real time. But knowledge without application is hollow. Each student who walked through those doors was not just learning a new language. They were gaining a voice, a sense of belonging. The judge's demeanor softened slightly, prompting Maya to seize the moment. This building is more than bricks and mortar. It embodies the hopes of those seeking to elevate their lives. It's a cornerstone for future generations. As the weight of her speech permeated the courtroom, a subtle transformation seemed to unfold. The judge shifted in his seat, never losing his critical glint. Yet there was a burgeoning curiosity flickering beneath it. Maya was not just defending a legacy. She was shaping her own identity, one that combined passion and tenacity. In a world that often sought to undermine her ambitions, she learned the importance of resilience and self-advocacy. With every word, Maya realized the essence of her journey lay in taking ownership of not just her skills but her worth. The path ahead felt daunting yet invigorating, and as she basked in the moment, a truth unfurled within her. She was more than the challenges she faced. She was capable, driven, and her voice mattered. But just as she began to feel a sense of momentum, a quiet ripple traveled through the audience as the judge raised a hand to call for order. Enough, he interjected sharply, yet there was a layer of intrigue in his tone. You speak passionately, but how do you plan to sustain this educational vision? What are your strategies? Maya's breath caught in her throat, feeling the stakes rise once more. The challenge was set. Not just her passion, but her practical solutions would be scrutinized. With a flourish of determination, she prepared to delve into the intricacies of her plan, knowing this moment could define not only her path but the fate of a legacy. Would she find the clarity needed to outline her vision or stumble under the weight of expectation? The tension thickened as Maya stepped closer to her truth, ready to confront whatever came next. Maya steadied her breath, feeling the heat of the moment intensify as the judge's question hung in the air. She had anticipated this, yet the pressure bore down on her like a heavy storm cloud. How could she transform the passion and resolve that anchored her into a robust strategy that others could believe in? I understand your concern, Your Honor, she said, formulating an answer as adrenaline coursed through her veins. To sustain this vision, I have developed a multifaceted approach, starting with partnerships with local businesses and language enthusiasts willing to invest in the future. Her mind raced through the plans she had outlined meticulously, the folders she had compiled. There was a world of difference between her dreams and reality, and if she was going to bring this to life, she needed to shine light on every pragmatic step. We can host workshops that not only teach languages but also immerse students in practical applications, cultural events, business simulations, and real-world interaction with native speakers. She stood taller now, fueled by motivation and the memories of her grandfather. An urgent thought flickered through her mind. What if they didn't believe that people would want to join in? That was the crux. She remembered the way her community had come alive during the shared meals and the laughter. And all of this, she continued, is designed to create a feedback loop of learning and contribution. Each participant becomes both a learner and a teacher, ensuring that this legacy doesn't just exist in words but flourishes in actions. The judge leaned forward, his expression a mixture of skepticism and intrigue. In this moment, she recognized a pivotal shift within her own psyche. This wasn't merely about defending her vision. It was about stepping into the role of a leader. She engaged with clarity now, each word a building block in constructing her narrative. But what about funding? The judge interrupted, narrowing his gaze. How will you finance this? Maya could feel the heat of uncertainty creeping back in. She felt exposed. Funding, she echoed, gathering her thoughts. It's not just a challenge, it's also an opportunity. I'm exploring crowdfunding options and seeking grants tailored to educational programs focused on language diversity. As she spoke, a memory surfaced of late-night conversations with her grandmother, who had always said that challenges were stepping stones. Moreover, she added with renewed vigor, there's a wealth of untapped potential in our community. We can draw on alumni and local success stories. This isn't a solitary endeavor. It's about connecting people to ignite a shared purpose. With each point, a deeper resolve surged within her. She wasn't just fighting for a program. She was advocating for what she believed could be a movement, a change in perspective about languages as a unifier rather than a divider. The judge nodded while maintaining a skeptical frown, but the glint in his eyes suggested her words carried weight. Despite this progress, a nagging ache of fear surfaced. What if this was all for naught? What if her words fell on deaf ears? She took another deep breath, ready to pivot one last time. I believe that language is the bedrock of understanding. The students we nurture today will be the leaders shaping tomorrow, and together we can build a society where every voice counts. Every story is valued not just for the sake of it, but for the strength it brings to our community. As she concluded, Maya realized she had spoken not to impress but to connect with her own journey. The judge's expression became inscrutable, and she held her breath, waiting for his response. It was now or never. What if, he said carefully, your vision proves too ambitious? Will you still advocate for what you believe in? The question reverberated in her mind, forcing her to confront her deepest fears. A long silence ensued, punctuated only by the sound of her heart racing. The future of her dreams dangled precariously, and now, she had no choice but to direct her focus inward. Would she continue to rise after potential setbacks, or would she falter at the first sign of resistance? The answer was just beyond reach, but it felt electric, filled with both dread and an exhilarating sense of possibility. Maya felt the weight of the judge's question settle like a stone in her gut. The air was thick with tension, every eye in the courtroom fixed upon her as if she were the very embodiment of her ambitious dreams. Fear curled around her like vines, yet amidst this tightening grip, something inside her flickered defiantly. It wasn't just the judge's disconcerting challenge that haunted her thoughts. It was the underlying realization of her own capabilities. How many times had she downplayed her aspirations? How often had she let self-doubt creep in, questioning whether she truly had what it took to lead, to champion something as grand as her vision? The judge's stare was both piercing and scrutinizing, dissecting her resolve in ways she hadn't anticipated. She could feel the urgency of the moment pressing her to forge ahead, to reclaim her voice. With a deep inhale, she gathered her thoughts, resisting the urge to default to familiar insecurities. Your Honor, she began, her voice steadier than she felt. Ambition has always been intertwined with risk. It's a path I'm willing to walk, regardless of the hurdles. Every setback teaches resilience. Every rejection strengthens my resolve. These words, once mere aspirations in her mind, now stood firm on her lips like a declaration of war against her fears. What if she allowed doubt to write her narrative? A sudden surge of clarity washed over her. She was done allowing apprehension to define her trajectory. The judge observed her for a moment, and she could see the flicker of acknowledgement in his eyes. Encouraged, Maya pressed on, Our society thrives on stories of overcoming barriers. I stand here not just to advocate for my vision but to embody the spirit of change that language can ignite. Should challenges arise, I will adapt, evolve, and fight harder. Her resolve morphed into a rallying cry, and she tapped into an unfamiliar reservoir of confidence. In this courtroom brimming with skepticism, she recalibrated her approach, transforming fear into an exhilarating resolve. She remembered countless late nights spent preparing, deliberating over every detail, and how each moment built her competency. Those actions had become the training ground for this very confrontation. As she spoke, she conjured vivid mental images of the impact her program could have. She envisioned classrooms buzzing with the excitement of discovery, young minds bursting with newfound skills eager to explore the world beyond their immediate surroundings. Her vision was not just abstract. It was tangible, vivid, and waiting to come alive. The judge shifted in his seat, a flicker of interest igniting his expression. It felt like a breakthrough, and with each word, Maya chipped away at the wall of doubt, fighting for validation in her cause. The truth is, Your Honor, the potential lies not just in me but in every individual who is ready to embrace this philosophy. I am a vessel of their hopes and dreams. Maya's heartbeat quickened. There was a rush of urgency, and she suddenly felt the stakes elevated. Would the judge's next question reveal an even deeper insecurity within her? What if, he posed cautiously, you uncover that not everyone shares your optimism? What then? The air crackled with expectation. She understood the pivotal moment unfolding. Her next response would either break her spirit or solidify her transformation. Yet instead of despair, a fierce determination ignited. This was a reflection of not just her endeavor but of her identity. If others doubt, that signifies an opportunity to educate, to inform. In the face of resistance lies the chance to cultivate deeper conversations and light a fire of curiosity. With her own words striking against the walls of uncertainty, she grasped the truth that had been haunting her. Her path was not solely about outcomes. It was a journey of self-discovery, of finding strength in conviction. The judge leaned back slightly, a thoughtful look crossing his features. Maya felt emboldened by the exchange, her journey unfolding before her in a way she never anticipated. The courtroom faded, and for a brief moment, she pictured her grandmother smiling, whispering of bravery and the roots of purpose. Could she really turn the tide in the face of skepticism? Would she have the strength to stand firm against doubt, embracing whatever challenges lay ahead? As the judge prepared to respond, Maya's heart hammered in anticipation not just of his words, but of the potential revelations that awaited her on this path. Would this be the turning point she had long craved, or just another hurdle on a journey fraught with uncertainty? Maya's resolve wavered momentarily as she awaited the judge's reply, the tension like a taut string ready to snap. She had just challenged not only the judge's perceptions but her own limiting beliefs, and the weight of that challenge descended upon her with ferocity. The judge cleared his throat, capturing the courtroom's attention once more. "Ms. Thomas," he began, his tone shifting, revealing a layer of contemplation instead of mockery. "Your passion is commendable, but aspiration without pragmatic grounding can lead to disillusionment. How will you maintain this vision when faced with relentless skepticism?" Maya met his gaze, straining to hold onto the confidence she had summoned. She realized that the true test was not just in articulating her thoughts but in reflecting upon their validity against the unforgiving backdrop of reality. She had spent years cultivating her dream, a program that could truly change lives, but how much of it was fantasy? Was she genuinely prepared for the pushback that lay ahead? "Your Honor," she responded, her determination sharpening her voice, "I understand the gravity of skepticism and its impact. Yet, every innovation in history has been birthed from the fires of resistance. I am equipped not only with a passion but with research and data that highlight the success stories of similar programs. Each story is evidence. Each success is proof." She sensed the judge's skepticism transform into curiosity. Perhaps she had piqued his interest. Maya could feel the stirring of a hidden power within her and understanding that knowledge was her arsenal. The more she learned, the more formidable her defense would become against doubt. As the judge unrolled a fresh line of questioning, she prepared herself for a deeper dive into her preparation. And what specific step will you take in the face of those who resist this change? A flush crept up her cheeks. It would be easy to fall back into vague assurances. But she had steeled herself against that instinct. My first step would be to establish communication with critics. I would host workshops to engage with community members, to not just express my vision but to invite conversation. Too often, voices are lost in the clamor of ideals. I will translate my ambition into action by listening, adapting, and forging alliances. Maya's conviction brought clarity to her vision. She recognized the battles that loomed on the horizon, but felt emboldened by her commitment to transform perceived adversaries into allies. Knowledge, dialogue, and adaptability would fortify her approach. Yet, there lingered a gnawing doubt. What if they still didn't listen? What if her efforts to engage turned to futility? The fragments of fear whispered through her mind, sowing seeds of hesitation. She clenched her fists, reminding herself that this journey was fraught with uncertainty, a reflection of her growth. As the judge observed her, a new question seemed to flicker at the edge of his consciousness. And when those conversations produce resistance, how will you not lose hope? Maya inhaled deeply, the moment crystallizing in her mind. It was time to confront that fear head-on rather than allowing it to shadow her potential. Your Honor, losing hope is not an option in my lexicon. Each no strengthens my resolve. Each obstacle becomes a stepping stone to heightened understanding. I've learned that resilience is not the absence of doubt but a dance with it, acknowledging its presence while refusing to bow to it. With that, a fire ignited anew within her, an ember shining brightly against the darkness of uncertainty threatening to enshroud her ambitions. The gallery buzzed. She could see faces reflecting disbelief shifting to interest. Had she turned their skepticism into intrigue? She held her ground as the weight of her purpose settled into something tangible. But just as she felt the tide shifting, a voice called out, disrupting her thoughts. What if you fail? Maya's heart raced, the question striking at the core where her deepest insecurities resided. Would failure relinquish her journey before it could truly begin? The impact of that thought rippled through her, making her deeply reflect on what she truly feared the most. She steeled herself for the answer, ready to confront that vulnerability and to lay bare the truth of her aspirations. Would she allow the potential of failure to define her? As the silence echoed in the courtroom, she stood on the brink of revelation, eager to declare the truths she had discovered. But would her answer cement her path or pull her back into the shadows of doubt? Maya's lips parted as a wave of silence washed over the courtroom, amplifying the chaotic rhythm of her heartbeat. The question hung in the air like a heavy mist, and with every second that passed, her courage flickered under the weight of uncertainty. Here was the moment that could either anchor her resolve or drown her spirit in fear. What if she failed? The thought gnawed insistently, like a relentless tide eroding the shore of her purpose. It was a familiar whisper, a haunting echo from her past. She had faced setbacks before, betrayal dressed as friendship, opportunities skirted away, dreams that faded like mirages in the desert heat. But this wasn't just another chance. This was her vision, her life's work. She pushed aside the tightness in her throat, searching for clarity. I will learn, she began, her voice stronger than she felt. Failure is a teacher cloaked in disappointment. I will dissect any setback, analyze what led to it, and adapt my strategies accordingly. Most importantly, I will remain unyielding in my purpose. The judge nodded thoughtfully, though she sensed that he remained unswayed. In that moment, Maya was not merely addressing him but fortifying her own resolve. It was a rehearsal for the conversations that would inevitably unfold outside the court, with allies and critics alike. By declaring to the judge her readiness to learn from failure, she was solidifying an inner mantra, one that would steer her through the labyrinth of challenges ahead. As she continued, her body relaxed with each word. What I fear most isn't failing. It's not trying. It's the regret of inaction that haunts me. I refuse to be paralyzed by fear. The small crowd seemed to lean closer, drawn by the fire in her voice. Even the judge had softened, a flicker of understanding breaking through his earlier skepticism. Maya's thoughts raced ahead to the workshops she had envisioned, her dialogue with the community, and engaging skeptics in meaningful conversation. She had realized that their resistance stemmed from a deeper place, one rooted in the soil of loss and distrust. Her awakening was profound. Criticism could be a gift, a catalyst for growth. She recalled a teacher from her youth who had once challenged her to see feedback not as a reflection of her worth but as an invitation to refine her skills. Bringing the focus back to the room, she continued, "If I fail, I will seek new paths, new strategies. I will reach out for help. I will not isolate myself in the shadows of embarrassment." It felt liberating to shift the narrative. She embraced the vulnerability, letting it shine in her words, and found strength in her willingness to expose her flaws. A part of her wondered if the audience could sense the transformation within her, the unfurling of a mindset that had long sought permission to be bold. Then, an unfamiliar voice interrupted her thoughts. "But what if they don't want to listen? What if your words fall on deaf ears?" She felt a chill sweep through her, the question penetrating her resolve like a knife. Would she let doubt draw a curtain over her ambitions? Unfazed, she drew in a breath, crafting a vivid image in her mind of her future doing what she was destined to do, championing her program, fostering connections, inspiring lives. She knew it was her duty not just to speak but to connect, to understand and translate her vision through others' eyes. "I will adapt my approach with focus and persistence," Maya declared, her voice strong and steady. "If my words don't resonate today, I will find new ways to express them tomorrow." This isn't a one-time effort. It's a lifelong commitment to serve a purpose larger than myself. But the voice in her mind wasn't silenced completely. A late realization settled, pushing against her earlier confidence, and she recognized that her greatest challenge wasn't external. It was redefining what success truly meant for her. Would it be the applause? Or could it simply be the act of striving despite uncertainty? As the judge leaned forward, scrutinizing her, she felt a visceral shift. Within, "Where will you draw your strength when faced with true adversity?" He probed gently, his tone shifting from skepticism to deeper inquiry. Maya stood at the precipice of self-discovery, knowing the answer was resting within her. She clenched her fists, about to divulge the essence of her resilience, the bedrock of her commitment. But behind that conviction lay another question waiting to unfurl. Could she remain true to herself amidst the cacophony of challenges? Just then, a sudden thought echoed through her mind, akin to a spark igniting a wildfire. Would this revelation change everything for her? She braced for the response, the next question hovering just out of reach, primed to challenge her resolve yet again. Maya's heart raced as she steadied her breath, aware that the moment had arrived to define her resilience. The intensity in the room shifted, her surroundings fading, leaving only the potent connection between her and the judge. What would she draw from when the world around her rippled with dissent and doubt? "Each experience I face," Maya responded, her voice a steady current now, "will serve as a foundation for my strength. I've had moments where silence felt like an avalanche of despair. Now, I understand that even in silence, clarity breeds courage. I will cultivate that courage every day." Her words were rooted in a confidence that hadn't existed moments earlier, but instead of just speaking to the judge, she was affirming her commitment to herself. As she watched the judge's expression, she noticed a hint of intrigue in his eyes. Maya leaned into the moment, grasping the potential to redefine not just his perspective but her own narrative of success and worth. She yearned to be more than a reflection of others' expectations or judgments. The epiphany struck her. It wasn't about making everyone else believe her. It was about believing in herself first. As she spoke, Maya felt a bubbling determination swell within her, pushing out doubt like a tide receding from the shore. "I will surround myself with mentors and impacts who understand the power of vulnerability. I will create dialogues, not monologues. If my message doesn't land, I'll ask why and I'll listen deeply." She saw heads nodding in agreement from the audience, a tentative flicker of support that fueled her resolve. But alongside this determination, an inner turmoil churned. What if her attempts to engage were met with additional scorn? It was a prospect that brushed against the edges of her newfound hope. As a counterbalance, she envisioned the very community she sought to work with, their faces some friendly, others skeptical. Would she falter if their voices spoke louder than hers? Renewed clarity shut down that spiraling thought. I am committed to evolving, Maya asserted, her voice firm and filled with genuine conviction. As I navigate these challenging waters, I will view every encounter as a learning opportunity. Failure won't shatter me. It will nourish my growth. There was silence, the weight of her declarations settling in the room. The judge shifted, his expression softening, morphing from guardedness to contemplation. And if that nourishment leaves a bitter taste? If those around you refuse to learn, despite your best efforts? His question struck like a hammer, sharp and demanding. Maya hesitated, the edges of her conviction fraying slightly under the pressure of his inquiry. It was a tough question, the kind that demanded accountability rather than excuses. I will still push through, not just for me but for those who have yet to find their voice, she replied. Vulnerability is not weakness but a gateway to connection. I can only plant the seeds. I can't control how they grow. The moment hung thick in the air, and she sensed a pivot, a shift toward the possibility of something more profound than just a statement, a challenge to redefine her approach to leadership. How would she respond when confronted by resistance? Could vulnerability fuel her ambitions, or would it unravel her plans? She felt charged, yet a delicate uncertainty brushed against the enchanting thrill of her renewed commitment. Her pulse quickened again, an internal war waging between the comfort of her previous plans and the raw energy of this new revelation. Tell me, Maya. The judge leaned forward with intent, his eyes boring into her. Are you ready to back your words with action? Especially when the tide turns against you. In that weighty moment, something ignited deep within her. This wasn't just about surviving. It was about thriving in the face of adversity, about redefining what her journey would be, an expansive landscape filled with the richness of experience rather than mere accolades. Her heart tightened, and she knew she was standing at the crossroads of a decision that would shape her destiny. What would it mean to embrace that responsibility? To dig deeper despite the fear of failure? With a deep breath, she looked straight into the judge's eyes, ready to declare her intentions and challenge the lingering doubt. But before she could frame her thoughts, the door opened in the back of the courtroom with a resounding crash, whipping every head around to the startling intrusion. Maya's pulse raced as she turned, anticipatory thrill chasing away creeping uncertainty. Who had entered, the ally or the antagonist? The figure that emerged was not an ally, nor was it a traditional antagonist. It was a tall woman with fiery red hair, her presence doused in an air of confidence. The courtroom buzzed with whispers as she strode to the front, her heels echoing against the polished floor. Maya's breath caught in her throat. It was Ruby, an old classmate whose ambition was as fierce as her laughter. Interesting speeches we have here, Ruby said, a sardonic edge in her voice. Her eyes glinted, surveying the audience with a predatory glare. I hope they come with actionable plans, or else they might as well be fairy tales. Maya's heart raced. She felt the challenge in Ruby's proclamation. Once a source of inspiration during their college years, Ruby had slowly morphed into a controversial figure in their field. Known for her cutting critiques, she thrived on dismantling others' ambitions, and Maya had long hoped for a chance to rise above her shadow. But now, faced with this unexpected confrontation, old insecurities threatened to resurface. The judge's eyebrows arched, redirecting his attention from Maya. Ruby, why have you interrupted? I came to remind everyone that words are meaningless without relevance or action, she replied, folding her arms against her chest. Maya might be preaching about courage and vulnerability, she paused for effect, but can she really back it up? What does it matter if the ideas don't translate to real change? Maya's initial shock began to morph into clarity. This was a test, a live examination of her resolve. She had asserted that she could embrace failure as a learning tool. Now she would have to prove it right here, right now. The atmosphere charged around her, crackling with the tension of unanticipated scrutiny. "Maya," the judge prompted, glancing between both women, "your retort?" "Words have power," Maya started, steadying her voice against the onslaught. "But they are mere husks without personal responsibility." She met Ruby's gaze, feeling emboldened. "I acknowledge that talk means nothing without action. But I believe that our journeys, however flawed, can drive the changes we seek. Vulnerability is not the absence of strength. It's an open channel for growth." Maya could feel the crowd's attention intensifying, some leaning forward, drawn in. Was her message resonating? Could she transform skepticism into belief, if only for a moment? "If you fail," Ruby interrupted, her tone sharp, the failures reflect poorly on you, or worse, your entire community. Is it worth risking your reputation and credibility?" The question sank deep into Maya's consciousness, stirring a tempest of doubt. Had she misjudged her own capabilities? But her determination surged forth, washing away the uncertainty. "Each failure will only refine my approach. I am shaping my legacy, not for validation but for my own fulfillment." The audience seemed captured by the exchange, nodding in sync with Maya's conviction. But Ruby wasn't done yet. "And when does your self-discovery become self-indulgent? If you continuously assert your journey, how do you ensure that it doesn't alienate those you strive to help?" The double-edged question hung heavy in the air. A silence fell like a blanket, all breaths held. Maya felt compelled to dig deeper. "It's a fine balance, Ruby. I will strive to ensure my path is inclusive, that my learning benefits others rather than isolates them. But I will not stop advocating for my truth in the process." With every word, she felt her voice consolidating her resolve, the weight of self-doubt shifting. What had started as a simple question morphed into a transformative dialogue, a moment she had long desired. Yet today took on a gravity she had not anticipated. The judge's eyes sparkled with a mix of admiration and amusement. "And now, Maya, what will your next actions be? In the face of such a challenge?" Maya squared her shoulders, absorbing the tension. This was her inflection point, a moment she could seize to elevate herself beyond Ruby's provocations, or let them derail her. "I will take this as a call to action. A plan to develop workshops that bridge the gap between self-expression and communal growth. But I need feedback, honest critiques to shape those discussions." As she spoke, Ruby's demeanor shifted, an inscrutable reaction painting her features. Was it disdain, curiosity, acknowledgement? Maya's heart thudded against her ribs as she realized she was no longer afraid. This was her arena and her opportunity to claim it. As Ruby's sharp gaze remained fixed on her, she sensed a door opening, a pathway to an unforeseen side of this confrontation. The question loomed. Could she transform the skepticism into support, or would Ruby's sharpened rhetoric be a continuous barrier? Before the weight of that choice settled, the judge leaned back in his chair, a knowing smile playing on his lips. "Well, it seems we have a rivalry brewing, one that may test both of you. Let us see how that unfolds through action." Maya felt the anticipation wrap around her like electric vines, aware that the most critical next steps loomed, just ahead, steps that could either redefine her journey or entangle her deeper into the web of competition. Maya stepped away from the podium, the applause fading into a distant murmur as the weight of the moment settled heavy on her shoulders. She had not expected such an intense confrontation, nor had she anticipated Ruby would return to probe further into her ambitions. Yet here she was, standing on the precipice of a new beginning, or perhaps another overwhelming challenge. The courtroom buzzed with the residue of expectancy. It felt like they were still holding their breath, waiting for the next act in this unfolding drama. In the past, moments like these had sent her spiraling into self-doubt. But now, the sensation was one of empowerment. She had confronted Ruby, a foe she had never dared to challenge so directly before, and in doing so, she had unearthed a latent strength within herself. This was not merely a defense. It was a declaration. For the first time, she felt her confidence anchor her instead of scatter her resolve. "Workshops," she murmured to herself, the idea a small ember of potential. This was more than a response to Ruby. It was an initiative born of her personal transformation. But could she walk this path alone? The thought left her heart racing, the clock ticking down to decision time. She needed allies to test her emerging vision, to hone it into something meaningful. A familiar face caught her eye through the throng of departing attendees. Sam, her former professor and mentor. He approached with purpose, a mixture of pride and concern etched into his features. As he reached her side, Maya felt an immediate connection. She craved his guidance now more than ever. "Maya, that was quite the display," he remarked, tipping his head slightly. "You not only stood your ground, you reclaimed your narrative." "Thanks, Sam. But did I really?" The remnants of uncertainty tugged at her. What if I'm just kidding myself? What if Ruby is right about my ideas not translating into action? He shook his head vehemently. "You're not giving yourself enough credit. The very act of envisioning those workshops shows you're ready to put your theory into practice. It's time to amplify your voice not just for yourself, but for those who will resonate with your journey." Maya nodded, feeling emboldened by his words. A plan was starting to form, but she needed more than just approval. She needed insight. "Can we brainstorm? I want feedback, constructive criticism on what I can offer." Sam smiled, revealing the encouragement she sought. "Absolutely. Let us sit down and map out your ideas. I think you're onto something that could reshape not just your identity but how others in your field perceive growth and vulnerability." As they moved toward an outside courtyard, ideas began to flow, each one igniting a flicker in Maya's mind. She considered not only the workshops but also community engagement, how they might foster a sense of trust and shared exploration. Each conversation with Sam felt like a stepping stone, and as they exchanged thoughts, waves of inspiration coursed through her. Yet amidst the exhilarating brainstorming, a nagging thought persisted. How would Ruby respond to this new venture? Would she seek to undermine its progress as she had with Maya's speech? The prospect of confrontation loomed, one that Maya could not ignore. Just as she began to drive deeper into her passion, that undercurrent of tension returned. "Do you think I should reach out to Ruby?" she asked abruptly, the question hanging in the air. Sam raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. "You want her opinion?" "I'm not sure. I just think if I can get her on board, it could actually strengthen the initiative. What if I can turn this rivalry into collaboration?" Sam regarded her intently, then replied, "That's a bold move, Maya. It could either solidify your foundation or expose you to further conflict. Only you can decide if the risk is worth it." With his words hanging between them, Maya faced a pivotal choice. Could the fear of sabotage hinder her ambition, or might the potential of partnership redefine her journey? There was no easy answer. Could she transform a conflict into an opportunity? Only time and perhaps a conversation would tell. As they finished brainstorming, Maya felt an exhilarating mix of apprehension and courage. The journey was only beginning, but her next step, whether toward Ruby or away from her, would dictate the course of her development. And as the sunlight dipped behind the distant skyline, she understood. The moment had come to face the ghosts of her past and either reclaim her narrative or surrender to a rival's influence. Maya stood at a crossroads, the reality of her choices weighing heavily on her mind. The recent confrontation with Ruby ignited a spark within her, not just the desire for validation but a newfound understanding of the power of collaboration and dialogue. She couldn't let her ambitions be defined by rivalry. She needed to harness that energy to propel herself forward. Days transformed into weeks as Maya immersed herself in planning the workshops she had envisioned during the trial. With Sam's guidance, her creative momentum surged, and she began shaping a curriculum that blended language acquisition with cultural immersion. Each draft brought her closer to the tangible realization of her grandfather's legacy, filling her heart with purpose. She was no longer just a young woman clutching at dreams. She was constructing a vision, brick by brick. But the lingering shadow of Ruby remained. The familiar knot of apprehension twisted in her stomach every time she considered reaching out. It was a risk inviting dissent and the possibility of further ridicule. Yet, deep down, Maya knew that true growth often required stepping into discomfort rather than shying away from it. She had learned this lesson time and again, and it now echoed in her mind. One afternoon, standing in her newly designated workspace, an empty room in her grandfather's building that was filled with potential, she resolved to take action. Maya took a deep breath, picked up her phone, and dialed Ruby's number. As it rang, her heart raced with a mix of anxiety and determination. "Hello?" Ruby's voice was brisk, laced with surprise. "Ruby, it's Maya. I'd like to talk." The words tumbled out, earnestness spilling into her tone. "About what? Your aspiring school?" There was a challenging edge to her response. "Actually, yes. I'm launching the workshops we discussed in the courtroom. I believe they can make a real impact, and I want your insight. I value that you care enough to challenge me, and I think we could create something meaningful together." There was a short pause before Ruby replied, "You want my help?" "I do," Maya affirmed, firming her resolve. "Let us combine our strengths rather than allowing your skepticism to divide us. I think we both want to contribute to our community." As Ruby processed this notion, Maya felt an exhilarating rush of empowerment. Perhaps this was the beginning of a transformation not just for her but for Ruby as well. Only then did she realize that vulnerability was not just about exposing oneself, it was also about forging connections and inspiring growth in others. The meeting between them unfolded in a local cafe, a palpable tension cloaked by flickering candlelight. As they discussed ideas, Maya observed Ruby's shifting demeanor. Initially, Ruby approached the conversation with skepticism, dissecting Maya's plans. Yet as the exchange deepened, something shifted. Ruby's critiques morphed into constructive insights, her competitive spirit giving way to a collaborative energy. "I'm impressed," Ruby admitted, leaning back in her chair. "These workshops could genuinely empower our community. But you can't just bring people in. You'll need constant engagement to keep their interest alive." Maya nodded, recognizing the wisdom in Ruby's words. "Exactly. That's why I plan to involve alumni and local businesses to create a support network. Their stories and successes can inspire current students." As the evening progressed, the connection between them flourished, transmuting what was once rivalry into a partnership of shared ambitions. They began drafting materials together, brainstorming cultural events, and discussing guest speakers. Each suggestion was a testament to their combined strengths, leading Maya to a revelation: this was not just her journey anymore. This was a collaborative endeavor that could elevate the aspirations of many. Months later, the workshop series launched to a wide audience. The community center filled with laughter and animated conversations as families engaged in cultural activities. Bright paintings adorned the walls, each telling a story of connection through language. Maya stood at the front, beaming as attendees bonded over shared experiences and newfound understanding. What had begun as a personal battle for legacy transformed into a communal celebration of language's power to unite. Feedback from participants flowed in, praise echoing of what had materialized from her vision. The students expressed how they felt seen and heard, their voices amplified in a space that embraced diversity. The initiative was thriving. In another room, Ruby and Maya observed the workshops unfold, a shared sense of pride glimmering in their eyes. They were no longer competitors but co-creators, channeling their unique strengths toward a common goal. The workshop didn't just create educational opportunities. It fortified a sense of belonging both for the participants and for Maya herself. As the sun dipped below the horizon on the day of their first successful session, Maya realized she had accomplished more than she had ever dreamed. She had not only reclaimed her grandfather's legacy, but had also cultivated a vision that rippled outward into the community. She had proven to herself that resilience, adaptability, and connection could conquer the fiercest doubts. With renewed confidence, she understood that she was no longer just aspiring. She had become an established leader, eliciting admiration from those around her. This was the moment of triumph she had long sought. Maya's heart swelled with fulfillment, and she smiled, knowing she had truly achieved something extraordinary. Now, she stood ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, grounded in the knowledge that she would embrace each one as opportunities for further growth and impact. You need to subscribe now to this channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that embody transformation and resilience. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support the vital stories that shape our understanding of triumph over adversity. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your insights fuel our community. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to inspire others with Maya's journey.